Hello and welcome to another edition of Video Games to the Max. I'm your host, Sean Garmer, and with me as usual, Mr. Mark Morrison.
Howdy.
All right. Well, I mean, you know, if you didn't know already, I'm sure everybody, you heard the big commotion over this last weekend with PSN going down. So if you're was one of those that were affected, I don't know, were you trying to play anything on your PSN?
Yeah, like
Or
Diablo and Infinity Nikki, and neither one of those worked.
That's I'm sure that was frustrating for you. I couldn't play a certain game I can't talk about yet. That was really frustrating because it was like the day that I could play it because I knew the Super Bowl was coming on Sunday and I wasn't going to be able to touch it. But all right, I guess I have to keep waiting. Thankfully, it came back up by the time we got to Sunday for people, or like late Saturday if you're in the West Coast or East Coast. It also
Right.
affected another. We're going to talk about the Capcom showcase. Also affected Monster Hunter Wilds beta. So we'll talk about that too. PlayStation's also apparently taken down the spam games. Mark finished Sniper Elite Resistance. I got to play. I think was probably going to be my final run through of the most I'm going to get through on Tales of Iron 2. And I'm sorry, I said the wrong name of the game last week. So I'm sorry to the devs for giving it the wrong name, but it is Tales of Iron 2. I'll talk about that, and then we will talk about some other things. Nintendo gave hints at what the Switch 2 might cost, or at least the things they're considering as to, you know, what's important to them when they're looking at the price. We'll talk about that and a few other things right after this.
You are listening to Video Games to the Max.
All right, so let's go ahead really quick and get the other stuff out of the way here. The housekeeping and all that. If this is your first time listening or 100th time listening, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much for whether you watch live or you watch later on demand or you listen later on podcasts, which we're everywhere there are podcasts. So definitely any podcast writer that you enjoy, definitely go check us out there. Give us a review, like, follow, all that. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, especially if you hit the notifications, you'll know anytime we do the show because most of the time it's been Mondays around 9 or so p.m. Eastern, but sometimes I have to change it because of when I have overtime for that day. But been trying to kind of at least keep it on Mondays for sure for everybody. The podcast comes out a little bit later than doing on YouTube, where it comes out immediately afterwards. But definitely you can go check it out later on demand too if you subscribe, so that helps out. Also, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you get our other shows that are on there as well, especially if you like other things that are not just video games. We got an anime show called Otaku Cafe, which you can go check out. They review all of the, well, not everything, but the shows that they keep up with each week that are weekly for the anime. And they have 3 or 4 different guys that rotate talk about their shows. So if you like watching the weekly anime, there's plenty of good ones from this season too. They're talking about those, and also the movies and TV shows. Ratchet Broadcasting, they do a great job keeping up with all that. Pretty much the new movies, the new TV. Well, TV shows a little bit take longer, but the movies, they come out that next couple of days. They're already reviewing it, so they do an awesome job. If you like keeping up with the entertainment side of things, go check them out as well. Of course, they're on podcasts. Just find their shows, so you can subscribe there too. So, all right, that's enough with the housekeeping. Let's go ahead and get into the video games here. Even though this is probably like the lightest week on news we've had in a while, which is kind of interesting, but still got a few things. So let's go ahead and talk about our video games here. So you finished Sniper Elite with Resistance.
Yep. Finished it with the ends. It is what it is, about 8 missions. I was like fairly big areas, and then the last mission is like a really stupid, very short chase that lasts like a minute,
All right.
One, it has some annoying problems though with co-op where like, so collectibles are shared between me and him. So if I pick something up in my game, like if I pick something up, it counts for him also. That's cool, except for the workbenches, which don't count at all, even though it says he picked them up. So he has access to all the weapons and stuff that you get from him, but not the actual, like it doesn't count for the trophy. So that's kind of annoying. Like, and even like in like the main, the like service record, it will say like, oh, you got 3 out of 3 workbenches, but he didn't. He has to like interact with them for to unlock in his game, like for the trophy. But yep, it's still good. Sniper Elite.
Yeah, I mean that's good that at least it works for you there.
Yep.
So
the
glad y'all enjoyed it for being a short experience.
Yep, and we're gonna replay the levels to get all the unlockables and crap. The only other thing I started messing with a little is I started looking up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth mods. So
Lord.
That'll be fun.
It's mostly,
well, a lot of it, the ones I'm interested in are like basically eliminating the crafting requirements for that item transmutator thing, or like giving you good weapons, like max stats for the weapons as far as like materia and the ability thing. But there are
essentially making the game easier.
Yeah. But there are a whole host of ones that are like, yep, like not nude mods per se, but like removing the skirt from like Aerith's swimsuit costume, or like there was one that was like a wet skin mod for Tifa, and I was like, you people have too much time on your hands. Like you need to get a girlfriend somehow. Like pay for it, or I don't know, but yeesh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we need to. Just some people, they just. I don't understand why that's. You want to play the game that way. I guess you want to put it out there for other nefarious reasons, perhaps.
Yeah.
Make it easier for the for other things to be used for that.
Right.
Which I'm sure is the main driver of why they don't. Hamaguchi said, they kind of attacked him for, kind of saying that he was trying to like censor people and what they do, and he's like, look, I understand the importance of mods. He's just kind of saying, be tasteful about it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people are not. You got those folks that are not going to do that. So
right.
That's what they've been waiting on when it comes to the game being on PC was this happening. So,
but yeah, like the other one is like unlocking all the folio skill points and all the like nodes. So yeah, it's just about kind of
so like having that at the beginning, basically, so you don't have to. Yeah, that makes
I didn't
sense.
like that. I didn't like that system much at all, actually, in the game. And then, yeah, I think I'm in the golden saucer right now in that thing. So I'm going through it slowly but surely.
Yeah. That's what, like, are you talking about the first time in the saucer?
Yeah.
That's still a pretty good ways. Oh, I mean, you're not having to do any of the stuff that actually takes up the time, which is the side quest and the.
Yeah, I'm doing most of those still. Right
You're
now.
still doing those, even though you already experienced that once?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just don't like. I mean, there's a lot of time wasting stuff in that game that I'm like, this could have. You need an editor somewhere in this thing, like the whole Mount Coral bullshit. Like, getting to the town is fine, but like,
the mine. I actually had to use a guide to get through that because I got lost.
Yeah, like the
'Cause I
whole
got
splitting
tired
up.
of going in circles thing. Yeah.
Yeah, splitting up the team where like Barrett and Yuffie like do this whole like dumb grappling hook bullshit and go down the mine cart, and it's like this. You didn't need to do this at all. Like you could have just like had gone through this directly, or like this wasn't in the original game. You guys made it for this, so
Well, I mean, it was all about extending it. Like I get the idea. Just
yeah,
it felt like you said, they wanted to give you as much as they possibly could, and then kind of just went like, let's just go crazy. All right.
right. And I'm thinking about picking up a copy of Xenogears soon.
All right, fair enough. Hey, that's
I've
an
never played
amazing
before,
game.
but
So.
yeah, I've heard one of the better RPGs for the PS1. So
All right. I was surprised. I thought you would have had that already with all your.
nope, I never played it. A lot of the Square stuff I never played back in the day, like Threads of Fate.
Yeah, there's a lot
Like
of that stuff that I never played either.
I
Just
played some of it, but not all. Like I played Air Guys, and the guy played that. But
all right. I guess I will talk about the one game I've been playing, Tales of Iron 2. It is very much a sequel to the first game, which I talked about on here too, just like discovering in that January period where I didn't have a game that I was really playing and talking about how I liked it, and I was hoping that I could perhaps review this game. Basically, it's just kind of like they decided to let's make it bigger
yeah,
and not better for everything. It's I don't really understand why. Like for me, this is still an indie title, and I don't need it to be this. They made it like twice the size. So like the first game was like 8 to 10 hours. This game is 16 to 20 hours, depending on how much of the extra stuff you do. And it's
yeah,
just like I didn't really need that.
right.
Um, So, I would have preferred, and like I didn't really need them to, oh, let me make the base and do put things into the base. And I then have to, keep upkeeping the smithy and the chef and all this stuff. And like the crafting got like overloaded, and I would have been fine with just make the combat do add more things to the combat just to, make it to where it's not the same. You can make the world bigger if you want. There is fast travel, thankfully, which there's like signposts that you have to find throughout the world, and if they're not working, you basically have to make them work, so that you can
As
use fast travel. Yeah.
it's like the Chocobo stop in Rebirth.
Yeah, kind of like that essentially. You have to like rebuild it so that you can then use it. It's it works well. The combat was obviously a main draw from the first game, and they nailed that again here. It's Souls, except there's way more save points. It's not like Souls where you die and all your stuff is gone and you have to go back to that section. Like it's not exactly like that. It just has like the brutal combat where you kind of have to know when to parry and when to dodge, and it does tell you. It has the little yellow and red markers, but there's times where they don't tell you. And you can obviously put it on a harder difficulty if you don't want it to tell you at all and you want to like be guessing. But the first couple bosses it took me a while to um figure out like the timing window, and it's actually not it has a nice timing window. It's not a terrible, it's like not that hard to figure out. It's just I figured out that it's like, okay, block is block for certain things, and it actually wants you to parry, which is
Right.
both of the triggers, or I use the tabs because it's a lot easier to do it that way. I like I'm playing on Xbox, so I like using LB and RB instead of the LT and RT. which it defaults to the triggers. Just because I've always had this thing of like, I remember on was it on PlayStation, I always felt weird like thinking the triggers are gonna fall off playing like the WWE games where you're like constantly wrestling all the time. So like when they came out with the tabs where I feel like there's more security in they're not going anywhere. So I'm just kind of like, all right, I'll just move it to this. But the story is still, hey, we're doing Game of Thrones with rats, and frogs, and you know, dragons and whatever. But without obviously all that drama and stuff. It has sort of a setting, and it is a different character this time than the first game. So they're not continuing it that way. It's just kind of similar things. And again, the world's bigger and more bosses, more side quests, more stuff. So if you like the first game, this is $20 again. I think if you love the first game, I definitely would give this a shot. You're gonna like this one, unless you just don't like any of the stuff that they added. Which, again, I still think for getting what you loved about that game, for the most part, I still think is worth what it is. And if you like the hard combat games, this is definitely one for you. And it's been fun to like kind of play a game that I don't normally play that much ever. So it's like challenging myself to play something different, which is it's good. Obviously, probably not a great decision to do it when you're like in a timing window with reviews. And I'm glad that I didn't have to like beat embargo for this, because that probably wouldn't have been great for me frustration wise. But still, it's I think even if you're not like the biggest Souls fan, if the world and the all the other stuff like intrigues you, this might be one to kind of check out and maybe ease you in to how that combat works or whatever. So yeah, definitely worth checking out for those that like the first game or might be in my indie games and definitely want to do that. Uh, I think next week, technically the embargo is after next week, so I have to look and see if I can actually talk about it next week. The embargo for the game I can't talk about is like the 20th, so it may be a few weeks until I can talk about that game per se. But it's definitely one we have both said that we're looking forward to. That's all I can say. So yeah, that's it for the games we're playing here. Let's go ahead and get into the news. Talking about news here, we mentioned it. There's not a whole lot from Sony's end about why PlayStation Network went down. And then also like why it was down for that long, except for them saying it was an operational issue. And that's it. Right? 18 hours. It's not what was it, 3 months?
Right.
That time in like way back in the day that it went down.
Like 2012 or 2011.
Yeah,
that
2012.
Wasn't that hack. Yeah.
It wasn't that, but it also wasn't a few hours either. It was definitely felt by people.
Right.
Lots of anger online. And
gamers being angry, you're just fucking crazy.
That's the time where I was like, people complaining, maybe we do need to touch grass. Because hey, go outside, do something. Go find things to do. I don't know. See, y'all folks that have multiple games or multiple systems like me, you could just go play your Xbox instead, or play your Switch or whatever. Until then, obviously, if you're wanting to play that Monster Hunter Wilds beta, that definitely affected you. So I'm sorry for those that had to deal with not being able to play with your friends on that, because Considering what weekend we're in, probably maybe perhaps a lot of your friends were watching the Super Bowl on Sunday, and you weren't going to have that opportunity on Sunday to play or hang out. But they are extending that beta due to the PSN being down, so that's good on Capcom's part. I know you said you were trying to play a game during this. Did you see any of the crazy upset people online?
No,
for this
I just had to like log in, and then both games kind of bombed out. And then I was like, I looked online, and I was like, okay. And like I personally, I could go online, but I couldn't actually do anything. Like it might, the little
Right.
it said it was like appearing offline, and then I flipped it to online, and I was like, I didn't set that. And then like it would be like, okay, you're online, but I just, it's just okay. But I try to like play Assassin's Creed Valhalla, like the online part of it, kind of, and it would be like, there's no server, or like online, there's something wrong, and I was like, okay, like that's fine. I can just come back to it later. Like it ain't a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean the problem is that unfortunately, we're like having to deal with this stuff just suddenly happening,
Right.
And so it's one of those things where like you can't really do anything about it. You just kind of gotta like keep dealing with it, and then all of a sudden it keeps going longer and longer. You're like, okay, did they get hit by a DDoS attack like before, and nobody's doing anything about it or saying anything about it? And
I don't know if you saw the MVG put up a video about like this is a problem with digital only consoles, or like the whole, because like you even have a PS5 with a disc drive.
Yeah, mine has the disc drive. Yeah.
Okay, I mean you do, but Jens, he has a PS5 Pro and he doesn't. So it's like,
He didn't get the disc
no
drive with it. Okay.
So it's like, okay, what does he do? Because like technically, I'm signed into it. Like technically, my PS5 like I signed in as like the primary one.
Mm-hmm.
So he couldn't like. I don't think he did, thankfully. But even if he wanted to, he couldn't play any games because it would have been like, yo.
Wasn't that the fix though? That apparently, if you're signed in as the primary, because you don't own the game, so you couldn't.
Right.
Yeah, but if you would have been able to play anything you owned as long as it was the primary. That was the problem. Is so many people don't know that you have to make your console the primary in order.
But like he couldn't, like even if he wanted to, he couldn't make his PS5 back to the primary one. Like
right, yeah, he can't because you have to be online to do that, right?
Yeah, so he was screwed. I mean, he didn't do it, or he didn't complain or anything, but he would have been screwed.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things where what can you really do outside of just, okay, now we're stuck? And I kind of understand people's frustration, but this is also kind of like when your power goes out. Not a whole lot you can do. You got to keep waiting. And then the people that are like so entitled that they think that Sony owes them a whole month or a whole year of PSN for free because
I mean, they're giving 5 days. I mean, if they wanted to, they could give like everyone affected like $5 in PSN credit or $10 or whatever. Like, other than that, they're gonna tell you to go screw yourself.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, okay, they give you credit for the day that you lost whatever it was.
Honestly, like 5 days is kind of generous for them, so I was kind of surprised by that.
Exactly, because they really just owed them a day because that's all it was. Look, not defending corporations or whatever, but it's like if this was they're not going to come out and say exactly what happened, right? Did somebody goof and
Bob
not run a certificate?
No, Bob pulled the cord out accidentally when he left for the day in the office. So.
Yeah, like what happened there. Just it's one of those like weird things that you're going, okay, this is why maybe you don't need to push the PlayStation Network sign-in thing on the PC games, because imagine if all those other PC games that have it taken off now, you're still having to sign in. You wouldn't have been able to use the game at all.
I think you can still use it technically. You just can't like isn't it?
No, but that was the
that-
point, was why they
that's the
couldn't.
requirement. Yeah,
The problem with Helldivers too was people got mad
right.
because all of a sudden they can't use it,
Yep.
right? For me, it's just I know people are going to say, well, Xbox didn't have this problem. It's like, well, we never know, but it does make you worry about that all digital future that we keep running to. And of
Right.
course, the physical only people were just absolutely letting everyone else have it during this, of like, hey, this is why you buy physical. This is why you buy physical. So
Yeah, there was some shitty GameStop. Like their Twitter put up a post like, "Oh, this is what." Yeah, but wait, this is why I buy physical games. And someone
yeah, I
responded,
bet you're wanting physical games now. You're like,
well, and then someone
really?
responded back with like pictures of GameStop full of Funko Pops. It's like, what you mean, like these? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, GameStop barely sells games anymore as it is. So
exactly. They really shouldn't be poking the bear on that, because they're the ones that look bad. I know that the individual stores don't control, the GameStop corporate tells them what to put in the store,
right,
but still, I mean, that's you aren't doing yourself any favors there. You're just waiting. You're essentially just waiting to get attacked.
yeah,
On that, but hopefully this doesn't happen again. Is all we can say, and hopefully those that did go through it now know, go make your PS. I'm actually got to think about that now, of like, go make my PlayStation the primary, even though I don't need it. That's the main problem too. Is most people, that's the only PlayStation they have, so you don't
right,
think about needing to do that at all. You just, hey, I just turn it on. It's the only one I got. It is what it is, and then it's like, oh no, I have to actually go and do this in order so it doesn't have to read the licenses or whatever.
yeah,
And that is really annoying, because I mean, that makes it to where, again, this thing we keep rushing to, of like, at any moment they can trigger that, and then you can't use your games that you bought.
yep,
So that's frustrating. But hey, at least Sony is being nice about, I guess this would be, yeah, to both consumers and devs who've been complaining about this for a while, and Nintendo as well. But we don't know anything about like whether Nintendo's been doing this, but there have been a lot of spam games, a lot of AI generated games, a lot of copycat games.
yeah,
Especially if a game gets popular, like on Steam, like that. The one that Randy and I played a lot last year, the Supermarket Simulator. All of a sudden, there was this Supermarket Simulator that was like not the same one, but it had a similar name. And all of a sudden, oh, that's on here. And it's
right,
like, oh, that's not the one that you're supposed to be playing. And it has almost the same name and everything. And it's like, that's taking away from, there's people pre-ordering this game thinking it's the same one, and it's not. Same thing happened with that Trading Guard Simulator game when it got popular. And there was like 3 or 4 of those that showed up on PSN. And there's a bunch of other AI generated games that keep getting, like, it takes them nothing to make it, but they make money because people have no idea that it's a copycat, right? Or a fake, essentially like a fake game, and they're
right,
spending money on that, right? And devs started complaining, and consumers are complaining, and finally, because IGN did some kind of investigation on how Nintendo and Sony do their digital stores, and that they're basically like working with very low QA for that. They
yeah,
are underpowered, undermanned, and suffering because of it. That all of a sudden, one of the companies, Random Spin Games, that's been making a lot of these games, got a bunch of their games taken down, thankfully. So it looks like Sony's paying attention to that, saving people money, and buying games that are most likely suck. But hopefully they will do a bigger run through on that. Have you bought a?
no, because I always kind of look before I
Yeah,
buy, and then I don't really typically buy a lot of stuff on Steam these days anyway, or the Switch. So
yeah. I mean, I feel like Steam it's you get
Steam
so
is
many
probably the
games.
worst one. Just because so much crap comes on in Steam every damn day. But,
right, exactly.
The Switch is also pretty bad with that. Like the PS4, Sony and Xbox kind of have that problem also, but it's a little better. Or
Yeah.
at least some modicum of QA, or but stuff slips through like that, like Mario Tennis or rip off on like PSN recently. Like
Nintendo has a Last of Us ripoff, a really bad Last of Us ripoff that's there, and it's like, really, Nintendo, come on,
No Nintendo seal of quality on that thing.
Yeah, definitely, and they're missing that for sure. Thankfully, it's not all this kind of stuff for Sony. There is one interesting one, very similar to how Shuhei Yoshida did a interview with Kind of Funny after he retired and left Sony. Ted Price did the same thing, and he actually revealed a kind of cool nugget of information that at one point they had pitched a Resistance 4 and Sony said no. And he said that a lot of people in the studio had great feelings about continuing it, and Sony just shot it down. At that point, they were going in a different direction. I wonder if they would feel any different now when they have no shooter franchises and wish they did.
Well, they got Destiny.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's still existing.
But that's not like a single player game, or
right.
I don't know, they should. I mean, but think of the time. Like that was a switch from basically PS3 to PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Look how well that Killzone thing did. Like that wasn't great.
Right.
So I can kind of see their reluctance to fund something or to okay that, because it's like we don't like this is kind of an old franchise. Or
well, I think by the time you got to the last game, there was a lot of diminishing returns at that point.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like Resistance 3 didn't exactly set the world on fire either. So
yeah,
makes sense, but
it makes sense from that perspective of why they shot it down. But it makes you kind of go back in hindsight and go, well, what if they still had Resistance, and what if they were able to? I mean, would they have had Guerrilla, or would they have had Horizon if they still had Resistance? Or I'm sorry, that's Killzone. I'm sorry. Would they have, had two different versions of Insomnia, like have the team that works on Resistance and then have another team that does Spider-Man and all that?
Right.
How would the studio have changed or been different at all if they would have kept it around? But you never know, right? Like, could it have been its own franchise where it's like loved, kind of like Doom, where you have we like the story stuff, but there's also the multiplayer to go play, or Call of Duty, right? Same kind of vein where people play for the single player, but then you're obviously staying there for the zombies and multiplayer. So, it's one of those things. Like, it would have been cool if Ted Price got his wish, but he says that's the one game that I think he said he wanted to work on before he retired or again one more time, and they didn't honor that, looks like.
Right.
So, but hey, he got to work on a ton of other great games, so it's not like he didn't have an amazing career as far as that goes. Did you watch that Capcom showcase thing?
No, I didn't even know what was going on. That was just Monster Hunter crap.
Really? I mean, yeah, they had the Monster Hunter thing separate. Honestly, the biggest information was about the new Onimusha game. And also that Onimusha 2 is getting a remaster. And it's
everyone's favorite.
Yeah. So it looks cool. Like they showed more gameplay for it. They said they're not going to focus on it being like brutally difficult. It's so that's we don't need. It's not going to all of a sudden be like Onimusha becoming Dark Souls, right? It's more about just we're still going to have the action combat. And
They're
stuff
still
that
going to
you
have the
love.
tank controls. That's the important question.
Thank God they're not. It seems like. Of course, this is for Onimusha wear the sword. Should have mentioned. They kind of revealed sort of this like story stuff of why he has the sword and how he's able to control it and everything else. Which is it was neat. I guess we'll kind of have to find out more as I'm sure when they reveal more of it later. But at least for like the 5 minutes or whatever they showed, it was pretty interesting. But it was kind of like the one sort of big thing to kind of take from it because everything else was, oh hey, remember this game or that game? You can go buy it on a sale right now.
Yeah.
And this game's still coming. There was no like big reveal. It's not like they had some surprise game that they didn't tell you that was going to be on there. It was still kind of, they elongated it with these like constant sales telling you that these games are out there that you can buy. It felt like
yeah, that's called an infomercial.
Yeah, it just honestly felt like I'm having to sit through this infomercial for that. And I was like, I don't know why. And they didn't just do it once. It was like 2 or 3 times. And I'm just like, what?
Repetition is key.
but why? It's like most people are gonna watch this on demand later. They're not gonna watch that live,
Right.
So I mean, I guess you could have possibly had people that were there for the Monster Hunter of it all, and then they kind of check in for this stuff. But honestly, yeah, at least they gave you more on this one game that they announced at the Game Awards that we didn't know it was going to be there, and I'm happy about that. I was kind of a little bit of an Onimusha fan, just the tank controls obviously kind of push you out of it.
I really liked the third one actually.
Oh, you did?
I played the first one on the Xbox, that Genma Onimusha. So that wasn't like the greatest version, but I think I beat it,
Right.
or at least played a lot of it. But yeah, I really like Onimusha 3. 2 and 4 sucked.
Yeah, interesting that they're like remastering 2.
Yeah, but they can't remaster Onimusha 3 because they can't get that hot genre no license.
Yeah, exactly. That's
See, the
that's
man's
going to be
funny.
the issue.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Did you ever hear of the Soul controller?
No.
Okay, it only came out. I never used it. I did see it in the store a few times though. It was a motion controlled katana for Onimusha 3. So
okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, because it was during the time where like everybody was doing the motion control Wii stuff.
No, this was like PS2 though.
Oh, okay. Crazy.
Remember like the chainsaw controller for Resident Evil 4?
Yes. Okay, I remember that.
It was basically like the same thing, except you swung this thing around, to like attack demons and crap. So
wow.
it was cool, but it was also expensive, and like like most motion control stuff back then barely worked.
Yeah, definitely. The tech didn't get better until later.
Right.
But yeah, essentially that's kind of the main draw of it. So if you want to go back and watch that, or you really care about Monster Hunter, you want to know the different things that are kind of new about it, you might as well just go. I'm sure anybody that's excited about Monster Hunter, you're already going to be trying out that beta.
Yo, do you hunt monsters?
Yeah, exactly. But sticking with Capcom for a little bit, 2 Resident Evil things here. One is that Resident Evil, I didn't even know this thing was still on. Like I thought they would have shut this down a while ago. But Resident Evil Reverse is going to be shut down March 3rd and delisted. So therefore, if you bought the game in the DLC or you got it with Village and you've been playing it, just get ready to know that is going to be gone. You know, okay. Did you never tried it out or anything?
No, because every online Resident Evil thing they tried to do has been bad.
Yeah.
People have fondness for that Resident Evil 2 thing on PS2, what Revelations or whatever the Brad Pitt
Yeah.
thing was, but like, yeah, at the time it was kind of passable, but like even then, like not really. Like it's so limited by it being on this console that like doesn't have built-in voice support or like good functionality. So
Yeah, I mean, if you want to enjoy co-op though, you got Resident
no,
Evil 5 and 6.
or I got like Left 4 Dead or something that you built for it, like not some half-ass thing. Like
Well, I mean, the whole point of this is that before it was Resident Evil 6 apparently had gotten an ESRB rating for Series X and S, like
yeah,
I want to say a few weeks ago, and then all of a sudden somebody found that Resident Evil 5 now has a rating as well. So I guess those games are coming
great. I'll be
to,
forced to play that with the ends again.
and also that does not mean that those games will not get remade because that happened with 4,
Yeah.
and then they still remade 4.
Yep.
So it just means that they're making the original games available, which that's good on Capcom's part. The original games available on modern consoles, and then we'll see. The rumor now is the last one that I saw was that they're remaking Resident Evil 0.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that last time,
Yeah, so
which I'm not a huge fan of, but sure, I guess.
I think it's cool that you can complete the series, I guess, from 0 to 4, and then if they make the story connect more, which they've been doing with the other ones, then it's
That's
cool.
the problem
Yeah.
is Zero sucked, and it was some like bad prequel. So people want Code Veronica, but at least it continued the story.
But
You
what
know,
if they take out some of the things that sucked, right? Like maybe not what they did, like where
like
they butchered
like
3, but
like Billy. I'm
yeah.
saying take out him.
I don't know if they'll take out the whole character. I don't know about that.
Right.
But you know, well, maybe they'll make some additions, knowing that they know that it wasn't that fondly received either. But
Yeah.
credit to them again for even though it was not the best
I'm
game
sure they
ever.
could pull it
So,
off, but again, it's just like the more like the really unnecessary one, because Code
yeah,
Veronica is still like older than that and more deserving of that as well. So
right. Well, people probably want to play that because of the characters that are involved in it, as well as the characters they know, instead of kind of starting with the ones that you do in 0.
yeah, Rebecca
So,
and Billy.
yeah. So, I a lot of people don't do that, right? Like we saw with Silent Hill, they started with 2. They didn't
Right.
just say, "Okay, let's try to do this," because to be fair to them, they didn't know Bloober Team was going to knock it out of the park, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's give them the one that's standalone that you don't need other stuff to play or whatever. And if they don't do well with this, then okay, we don't have to revisit this again. But they did, and maybe this will open the door. I don't know if Konami's gonna open that door or not, but I guess we'll see. We know that Bloober Team's working on their stuff, so
Yep.
that's probably going to be down the line. But Capcom seems to understand the assignment and that they want to kind of like, it seems like, retell or conjoin the story more between the games. Maybe that does mean that we're going to get 5 and 6 eventually remade.
I pretty much assume so, but just imagine, they'll probably make Resident Evil 9 next, and then
Oh
go
yeah, for
back to
sure.
the remake well, and then 10, and then another remake.
Yeah, I mean, they love those remakes. They're even going back to as we talked about, those old franchises to do them. So I
And Resident
guess,
Evil 10, you get to play Blitzball.
yeah. Game Pass. Obviously, it's that first part of the month, so they got to reveal Xbox and Microsoft do the games that are coming. We do know that Avowed is coming on February 18th. That's the big first party game, so it's kind of light as far as new games or
Right.
new old games, really. Far Cry New Dawn is the one that's around right now. Madden NFL 25, not surprising. Basically, they always do this the week of the Super Bowl. They put this out on Game Pass because, of course, gotta try to make that money as much as possible. And then everything else is kind of like, okay, this is now on Game Pass Standard also. So like Ayuden Chronicle, 100 Heroes, now on Standard. And now there's Crab's Treasure, which is a great Souls-like, indie Souls-like there. That's on Standard now. Did you see the kind of out of nowhere, they announced DLC for Ayuden Chronicles, 100 Heroes? Like,
No, but I know
there's
it's
a
supposed to get
whole...
DLC. So
Yeah, there's like I think 3 story DLCs or whatever that they're gonna add. So hey, kudos to them because that came out. People were excited about it, sort of, and then
it didn't do particularly well.
it did kind of like it was like there with a whimper. It was kind of
Right.
like it was a year of so many great RPG, especially the RPGs with a J. That it's like
And
this
then
one kind of came out and
also the
oops.
reviews were a little shaky. Like it wasn't like
Yeah,
Mighty Number Nine terrible, but it wasn't like Bloodstained Ritual of the Night either, or
yeah,
So
agreed.
it was kind of just average or decent, but nothing like too great.
Yeah, no, definitely. Also, speaking of RPGs, if you haven't played Tales of Arise yet, you might want to get on that, even though you won't finish it before it gets out of Game Pass on the 15th, because that game is long.
Right.
But
Kind of marathon it.
maybe take advantage of that discount if you haven't already, and I would pick it up, man, because Tales of Arise is great,
Right.
for sure. So, speaking of more, last week we talked about Forza Horizon 5 coming to PS5. Well, more games from the Xbox library are coming to PS5. Not that surprising, really, at this point. But the kind of 2 lesser ones, always give Microsoft credit for like really keeping that strategy game genre like going. And they are going to bring two of those to 2 of their like stalwart ones, from back in the day. To PlayStation 5, Mythology Retold, which that's kind of newer. That was from last year. And then
Yeah.
they're like definitive edition, like remaster Rage of Empires 2 also coming to PS5. So if you love those kind of games, you can go pay for them on PlayStation 5, I guess.
Sure. Console RTS games are always cool.
Yeah, they either work or they don't, but
Mhm.
these were pretty well received for the most
Right.
part. Obviously, I'm sure most people played them on PC where they were originally, but Uh, this one was interesting to give to you since you play these games. I don't really. David Brevik, who obviously lead designer on Diablo 2,
Yep.
Was with Blizzard for a while. Obviously now with
N-
Microsoft.
Now it's not.
Yeah, now it's not. But I mean, he left after even in the middle of 3, if I remember reading
Yeah.
Jason Schreier's book. So his main thing is that he did an interview with Video Gamer where he talks about action RPGs reward gamers too quickly and then cheapens the experience. Obviously, Diablo 2 had you had to go a while before you leveled up. You usually replay that game quite a bit to get to where you wanted to be.
Right.
Where do you sit with that? Do you think that it should take longer for you to level up because you get to like level 60 or 72 quick within like 3 to 4 days and then there's not a lot for you to do? Or
Well, as far as like Diablo goes, like I'm still gaining like Paragon levels, and I'm like 260 out of like 300, and
Mhm.
that'll probably take me like a few more months to do if I want to get all the way maxed out. And there are people like already there, like they were there like months ago. but
that's because
They're
that's like the only game they play. Or...
yeah, they're crazy, so they don't count. I think it's I don't mind a level cap per se, but it's more for me. It's a matter of like, especially with Diablo, like gear abundance, or I get too much crappy gear. Like if I kill one of the world bosses, or one of the like not tier, but hate like I forget the name of it, but basically one of like the dungeon bosses, I get like between like 10 and 15 pieces of gear, and between 10 and 15 pieces of gear are worthless to me because it's not an upgrade at all. So I'm just selling or trashing most of this crap. So it becomes very pointless, or becomes just like this huge grind. It's like, oh, my 200th run of this dungeon, I finally got something that's like 5 more dexterity points for me or something. But like, whoopee! Like, there's still not enough like reforging or changing of the attributes or something. Or like there are these what is it? Like basically keystones you can use to like unlock this dungeon. I have 800. Like that's a lot. Like that is more than you would ever need in that thing. And I can't combine them, or I can't like make a better one. So it just like rot in my inventory forever until I eventually throw them away. Like Diablo 4 specifically needs more like combining of stuff. But that's a problem like most of these, action RPGs. Like you get to the end content and then you just kind of hit a wall because they don't have enough end content for you to do.
Yeah, it feels like Pillars of Eternity 2 kind of is hitting the sweet spot for people.
You mean Path of Exile?
Path of Exile, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Path of Exile. It's the same initials, and I can't think of
right.
Also, because Avowed is apparently somehow in the Pillars of Eternity universe, but they don't really explain how.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they said that. It's just like, okay, I guess, right? But still,
no one cares much about Pillars of Eternity, so it's like,
right, yeah,
that's like how Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy 12 are in the same universe technically, but it's like, okay, who cares?
But see, Vagrant Story is actually well loved, and people would love for that to play that game right now on modern consoles. Hey, Square, if even just let people play it on the PS Plus thing would be great.
Right.
That'd be nice. Like, give us that surprise, maybe that's going to be a drop there, and I doubt it. I'm just joking. But that could be a drop on the upcoming State of Play. I'm joking. It's not going to happen. But
right.
I do think that there's something to what he's saying, right? Of when if people are maxing out at like in 3 to 4 days, and that's all they wanted to do, and they're beating the story, and there's not really a whole lot reason for them to go back and play it again, then I mean, I guess if you played it on Game Pass, no big deal for you. But if you actually spent money on buying the game, the whole point of playing Diablo is to play it over and over, or any action RPG like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's other action RPGs that are not in that vein, that they're more like actual traditional RPGs. So them leveling you up quickly isn't really a big deal because that story is much, much longer.
Right.
And it has consequence. So, but in the ones that he's talking about, I'm assuming that are of that ilk, I can kind of see his point a little bit. But that's also where it's like you said, it's kind of okay. You probably think that the content you have coming down the pipeline is going to get people to go back to the game, similar to like how you do with WoW every year or whatever. And for Diablo 4, at least, it seems like that's not happening.
Well, they got those like seasons and stuff, but
yeah,
I still don't like the mentality. It's like, oh, to play this new content, create this new character. It's like, yo,
Yeah, that's. But then you said they disabled. Didn't they like make it to where you don't have to do that, or it's mandatory?
it's mandatory.
Wow.
I mean, I think for like one season it wasn't mandatory. I think like season 5 or something. But like they have this whole new like witch season. I think it's called like Season of the Witch or something, where they got like witch gems and all this other stupid crap. And I was like, yeah, if you want to play that, you got to create a new character. And it's like, yo, I spent the past 6 months built like creating this godlike character already. Like, I don't want to do that again. Like, but it's their way of like keeping the loop going forever, or keeping that mouse wheel spinning.
But didn't you have the mouse wheel spinning before without having to do that? I mean, I don't understand.
Yeah,
why they couldn't figure that out again. Right. Like, I don't know.
Agree.
It feels like they were so worried about the end game not being good enough,
right,
that they had to use that crutch in order to be like, well, now you have to play it for this long in order to get your character maxed out again. And it's like that kind of there's a word for it that I can't think of right now, but you're like forcing. Yeah, you're kind of like forcing the repetition on people, and it shouldn't be like that. They should want to go back to your game,
right?
And it's not great. It leaves a bad taste in the mouth of people, and I think a lot of people have probably done what's been happening, which is they just choose not to go back to it at all.
Yeah, I should hear Jens complain about Diablo 4. Like, he hates it.
Yeah. That's not good, though,
To be fair to him, partially, he played a bad character class. So it's like, well, that's kind of on you. But
yeah, that's true. You told him, and he could have gone back, but he was like, no.
Yeah.
But all right, moving on to Nintendo here for a little bit. Nintendo had everybody had their sales thing, but we did Xboxes last week, and Nintendo kind of had theirs within that would fall in this week. And obviously, Switch One sales have taken a nosedive because that console is freaking super old. Right. And it's not like they had amazing killer apps come out last year. Yep. It's also amazing that like people want to talk about these remakes all the time. And it just goes to show that JRPGs are still a very much niche genre, because I think an amazing game like Mario Thousand Year Door only had 2 million sales. And then you put it against like almost anything else. I think aside from Princess Peach, of their like big releases, and everything else outsold it by a bunch. Including Super Mario Party Jamboree, which sold 6.17 million, which is the highest of the three now. And each one of them sold over 5 million, which is still ridiculous. Right. Shows the power of the Switch. But also I think like not great numbers for Echoes of Wisdom. That only sold like 4 million, which is pretty low for a Zelda game.
Maybe, but like it's a really off Zelda game, so it's not hugely surprising. Like,
yeah, and I think there's still a lot of people that they have now become used to. Zelda is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's not 2D Zelda for them.
Yeah.
So they won't touch the 2D Zelda games.
Yeah, you're not playing Link. It's not traditional combat. Even like the old combat, it's just like kind of weird puzzle thing. So it's not that surprising,
Yeah, it's definitely, it's different. It's different combat. I mean, they try to kind of bridge the gap between the Tears of the Kingdom. Like, you can create things with the traditional Zelda stuff, but then it's also like you're not controlling a lot of the combat because that's being done by the little monsters that you can take over or whatever. And I think that probably threw some people off as well. Not to mention the like solving every dungeon with the bed for a while.
Yeah,
so, sure. A thing, but the main thing from Nintendo this week is obviously they kind of have to like keep drip feeding the news until we get to April 2nd. So Nintendo's president Furukawa was asked, especially because of all the stuff that had already come out about what's going to happen with these tariffs and all this other stuff, and the Japanese yen and exchange rate, all that stuff. He's like, they asked him, what about the Switch price, the Switch 2 price? And he says, well, there's multiple factors. They are considering that they know that it has to be affordable, that people have known Nintendo to be an affordable company when it comes to their products, and they have to take all this stuff into account. I think I saw that most of the Switch 2 parts are made in Vietnam, so the tariffs wouldn't affect the Switch 2. But there is still the exchange rate and the bad stuff going on with the yen right now. Do you think that where did you end up landing when we talked about the price when we did the prediction at the beginning?
I think I said 350.
You still think it's gonna be 350 after all that? I feel like he's kind of getting us ready for a little higher.
I could see 400. And there was some Costco Canada leak or like very temporary thing that had it for 500 Canadian, which would be basically 400 USD. So
yeah,
I
could see 400 by itself. A $100 leap for the console with what it's supposed to have inside, and then also the promise of Switch 2 games and still being able to play Switch 1 games. I think that's enough to, and then, whatever the DLSS technology is going to be able to do when you put it on your TV. Because supposedly the dock is going to actually have power this time. It's not going to just be you put the thing in.
Pass through.
It's not going to be a pass through or an upres. It's actually supposed to be providing power because it has to provide that 4K image. I definitely could see 400, and then Mario Kart 9, you pay.
Yeah, I think if it's a bundle with a game, that'll be 450. But it's I probably would just get the regular game. I get the regular bundle or the regular system. Could not necessarily need Mario Kart 9, even though it'll be like the number one selling thing.
I'd see a lot of people saying that like we should get ready for like 500. I'm just like, I still can't see them going that route because it's still a Switch. Like, even if you tell me that, like,
it's approaching 500. That's like almost Steam Deck money, and I'd probably just rather get one of those if I was going to get something in that form factor or like that specific. So I'm going to spend the price. I'd rather spend the 20 or 30 extra bucks in a Steam Deck and just say screw it.
I mean, it's still going to sell like crazy. Let's not kid ourselves. We know for sure it will, regardless of whether they price it at 500, 450, 400, 350, whatever. Obviously, when you start getting closer to 500, that's when people start going, I don't know, do I need it right now? It still plays Switch 1 games. We know two of the biggest games that people are going to care about are Switch 1 games, which is Pokemon ZA and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, especially the Pokemon side of things. So unless they announce a Switch 2 exclusive Pokemon game, there's not really a reason for the Pokemon fans to go out and rush, and which they could. They could announce the next gen of Pokemon.
It'll be Detective Pikachu too.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to get whatever. I don't even know what gen we're on at this point.
14.
The successor to Scarlet and Violet could definitely be announced at that April 2nd thing. Even if they announce it just like they did ZA, where it's just like letterhead, nameplate, it's coming, whatever, not this year, but next year. It's especially the way that the Game Awards and even Capcom with Onimusha made it okay for you to be able to put 2026 on a thing at the end. I could see Nintendo putting out a bunch of 2026 stuff and going, okay, get ready. There's some cool things coming this year, but next year we're definitely going to have a blowout. This is coming, this is coming, this is coming. So I could see it, but yeah, I think like once you get past, you're going to tell me that it's 500 and then 550 with a game for the Switch 2. and they're still going to support the. I think they're talking about Switch 1 is going to be supported as long as people demand it. The higher you make that price at the beginning, the more demand there's going to be for supporting Switch 1 for a long time. So,
but the problem is you can't do what Sony and Microsoft did, because there's going to be a bigger gulf between the Switch 1 and Switch 2 than like PS4 and PS5 or the Xboxes. So,
yeah, I mean, definitely, this year there's going to be Switch 1 support. So there's no rut. You don't really need to buy the Switch 2 until
but in
next year. Yeah.
In 4 years, do you think there'll be Switch 1 support? Except for the EA crap.
No way.
And even games nowadays, like, they don't run that particularly well on the Switch.
Well, there's so many games that can't run on Switch 1 that will now be able to run on Switch 2, right? Because Civ 7 apparently runs on Switch 1, but I bet Borderlands 2 is not going to be on Switch, but it probably will be on Switch 2.
I mean, Borderlands 4.
Sorry, Borderlands 4. I'm sorry. So Borderlands 4, I don't know if they're hinting at, are they going to try to get Grand Theft Auto 6 to run on Switch 2? Definitely not going to run on Switch 1. They did, Strauss Zelnick kind of reiterated they are going to support Nintendo. So, but I bet if Grand Theft Auto 6 lands on that thing, it is going to sell even more crazy numbers. So I bet they will try to make it work as much as possible. And I'm sure Nintendo is trying to avoid the whole, like, those cloud only things did not work. Right. So let's avoid that as much as possible. So yeah, we'll see what it ends up costing, but I see people putting out that 450, 500 price. I'm just like, man, I just can't see it. I can't see it unless
I think 400 for the basic one, and then 450 for a game.
I could see 500 if you're going to tell me that it either includes a Pro controller or another set of Joy-Cons or something like that. But it has to have other things included. So, which, those places that love to do that, like GameStop and all those weird shops that's the only way they would sell the PS5 was with a game and something else to jack up the price. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that also. But we'll see. Well, when we get there, we still got plenty of time for April, like 2 months, barely a little bit less than 2 months at this point. Right. I think the rest of this stuff. There's a couple of things. Did you see the thing with? It feels like every week we got to talk about BioWare and Dragon Age. Did you see the thing with Andrew Wilson where he said that the reason why Veilguard failed is because people are used to basically playing live service games, and so therefore if they would have kept the game as a live service like it was originally intended, it would have done better?
Partially. I think there's just like, he just said it should have been live service, but it's like, how does that work? Like,
he says to break beyond the core audience of games, you need to directly connect to evolving demands of players who increasingly seek shared world features and deeper engagement alongside high quality narratives, which obviously this was not a high quality narrative. He nailed it on that. This wasn't a high quality narrative, but then Mike Laidlaw came out on Blue Sky and he said, look, I'm not a fancy CEO guy, but if someone said to me the key to the successful single player IP success is to make it a purely multiplayer game, no, not a spinoff, fundamentally change the DNA of what people loved about the core game, to me, I'd probably quit that job or something.
Yeah, and also what's the mentality for that for Baldur's Gate 3? That's not a live service game, and that was one of the most popular games of last year or 2 years ago.
Well, it's because EA has it ingrained in them that everything has to be live service. Right. It's like they don't know how to do unless it's something like the Joseph Fair stuff, where it's like, okay, that's indie. It's okay for it to be. It still has co-op, but it's okay for it not to be live service. Right. Whereas it's like anything that they spend a lot of money on has to have some kind of, and it's like, holy crap, I'm worried about Mass Effect 5 now. Are y'all going to try to pigeonhole some kind of live service thing into that? It's like,
yes, they are. There's some GameSpot thing, like there's an EA thing about like, what do you want us to do about Plants vs Zombies 3? And my response was, make it a $20 game where there's no live service bullshit inside of it.
yeah,
And
it's
you
like
release it on
people,
PC.
I just feel like that's another thing too. It's just like, look, we're seeing so many of these things bomb. How many of these have to happen to where you kind of understand that it's like, look, the more and more you keep driving this up a wall, the more and more people are going to reject it.
Right.
And you're going to have more multiverses and more Concords and insert failed live service game here. And you're not going to be that success. Like, it's like you already kind of teeter on the brink with your sports games that you're like driving the monetization, and 2K does this as well with NBA 2K. Where it's like, how do we get that VC money constantly? It's like, yo, I mean, you try to do this with other games and it's just not happening. So how about we don't do that?
It's desperation, but it's also like market, like greed.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely greed.
It's
like,
also it's just like, how can how can we extract more and more blood out of the stone without
number
following it up?
must go up constantly.
Yeah.
Number cannot go down ever. It's like, y'all, some point the number's got to go down. It cannot go up infinitely. Y'all really need to understand that. Like, start spending less money on the upkeep of all this and start going back to ground zero with some of this.
I mean, it's telling when EA was cranking out Need for Speed games for the past decade and a half, how like the only one that did actually well was Hot Pursuit, or I think that's what it was, the cartoon one with cops and robbers. Yeah.
Yes, that one.
Because that was like a mainly single player game. Like you could like race against your friends' times, but like you didn't need to. And also like that wasn't the core feature of the game. All the other ones were like, they try to have this like live city clusterfucktastic, you race against your friends or whatever.
Well, race against your friends with scores, because it's not like you could actually race against them. It's like you put your score out there and they try to beat you. It's like, I was like, okay, that's nowhere near as fun, but thanks. Yeah, that look. It's just, it feels like every time we talked about them, like they postponed Need for Speed last week, and then they're gonna work on Battlefield, and it's just like you keep putting out Dragon Age to sit there and tell them how badly it did, and even EAFC to a certain point. It's just like, God, I'll be glad when they get past this, and let's be happy about Split Fiction, because man, everything about EA right now is just nowhere near as bad as Warner Brothers, though, who continue to just, I guess it's good news, but just shows their strategy was absolutely terrible. I guess they tried to figure out some kind of live service thing for Wonder Woman, or they couldn't figure out what they wanted the Wonder Woman game to be, and apparently it was rebooted.
Yeah.
Secretly. It's already cost more than $100 million, which is crazy. And aside from also, like, we knew they pretty much failed, because not only did they put it in PlayStation Plus and it felt like it made no waves, but Harry Potter's Quidditch Champions did nothing. Right. And then it's like Wonder Woman was supposed to be one of their big games because it uses the Nemesis system that we haven't seen since the second
Shadow of
War, and then it's just going back to the drawing board. So we'll see when it gets put out.
Let me ask you two things about Wonder Woman. A, does she fly or no?
I bet they will try to make her.
No, I meant the character itself.
I feel like I've seen in some of the cartoons that she did.
Yeah, because it's funny because Jens is a huge Wonder Woman fan, which is like bewildering to me, kind of, because she's kind of a bland character, I think, personally. And then I asked him, like, well, do you think she'll fly in this one? And he was like, what do you mean fly? And I was like, she can fly. And he was like,
Yeah.
and then he was like, what about the invisible jet? And I was like, she has that also. Like, that's also,
So she didn't have the ability to fly until the Wonder Woman 1984.
no, she's had the, well, no, like, she's been able to fly in the comics for like decades.
Right, but it was like gifted to her by Athena or something.
Yeah.
That's,
But
they
and then
whatever.
so that was like the funny Wonder Woman discussion we had. Because yeah, she flies in the cartoons, like,
Right.
no problem. But I read that article and I was like, what do you mean like this nemesis system has turned into like this friendship bullshit? Like, how do you do that? I was like just bewildered by that. I'm like, what, do you become friends with your enemies, who your nemesis is? You give them a chocolate cake and the beef is over. Like, it's like no wonder that part of the game failed, or like is meandering about, because you can't build a game on that.
I mean, she has enough nemesises to where it's like,
Well, no, because
yeah,
the whole thing with Shadow of Mordor is just faceless orcs.
yeah,
It's not like, oh, this one orc is somehow story relevant. It's not. No, just they have some rudimentary system that can just generate infinite orcs.
right,
Like, and that's a problem of Wonder Woman also, is like she doesn't have like a good arch enemy.
yeah. Other than like the cheetah,
Yeah, it's like, oh,
yeah,
Cheetah's the arch enemy. It's like, yeah, okay. Like, even if you eliminated Joker from Batman mythology, he still has
oh god, yeah.
dozens of other bad guys to contend with, or Superman. Same with like Lex Luthor. It's like, yeah, but like, how do you do the Nemesis system with like random goons with Wonder Woman fights? Like, oh, this one's somehow immune to her lasso or something like that.
Well, it's also like because in Shadow of Mordor, it's kind of believable that orc could also like whoop your ass,
Yeah, like
right? Whereas like the goon that you're gonna fight, where one woman
yeah.
obviously has better powers than that goon, like what are you
I
gonna
mean,
do?
that's also the whole problem with Superman game. It's like, how do you believably put Superman in danger? It's like, you
Yeah.
can't.
Would you have to pull like enemies from the Justice League or whatever to even fill that out for Wonder Woman to like make that believable to where she has enough nemesises to use that system? Like that's the thing is,
I still
yeah,
don't think so, because like the Nemesis system is just like, there is an in-game or an in-universe reason, at least in Shadow of Mordor, for like, oh, Sauron is creating tougher orcs theoretically, and
yeah,
they're immune to poison, or they're immune to whatever. Like, you can't do that with like Justice League or Wonder Woman, because like, oh, this goon is now immune to your weapon or your sword, or like your, like I said, lasso or something. So
yeah. Ugh.
I just think like it's a very hard thing to like pull off, and unlike with like Batman, or like even a lot of like X-Men or not Marvel characters who are like functionally at least mortal, like Spider-Man gets hurt, or Iron Man can
Yeah,
get fucked up. Like, you're not really seeing Wonder Woman doing that, or like Superman, because they are basically immortal. Like,
yeah.
I remember Superman 64, like the reason he could get hurt in that game was like, oh, there's kryptonite gas everywhere. It's like, yeah,
I mean,
okay.
that game was terrible, but,
Right.
like in general, but
But at least like they tried to provide an in-universe reason for why he was like weakened,
right.
but it was just dumb.
Well, hey, at least we know there's a single player Batman game happening at the remnants of whatever's left of Rocksteady.
Right.
And whenever it is that we'll see that game, it's probably like at least 3 years
Or
away.
I was gonna say 4, but 3. Yeah. Do you think it'll come out, or do you think they'll actually be able to finish it?
With them talking about there was like tumultuous behind the scenes problems with why Wonder Woman it got rebooted.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just don't have faith that Warner Brothers will still have a functional game division in that
Yeah.
long.
They honestly they should shut down everything except for NetherRealm and be like, here's the money for Mortal Kombat. If you can squeeze out another game on the off year, like bring back DC, whatever the hell that thing was called, Injustice.
Or Injustice, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if you can pull that off, cool. Everything else we're gonna shut down.
Yeah, I'd really be. It wouldn't surprise me at
Like
all if like Mortal Kombat's the only thing left standing after a while.
I could see. I don't think it'll come out. That Batman game will come out, but I think if it does, it'll be so far removed from what Rocksteady did or from what people want. It might even be a bigger disaster than Justice League or Suicide Squad.
I will say that if they can get, there's reports out that they're making an expansion to Harry Potter, and Harry Potter 2. If that does well, right, and continues to be the big grosser for them that the first game was,
Right.
and Mortal Kombat kind of keeps going along, I'm sure when the second movie comes out, that might reinvigorate people to go play Mortal Kombat again. And let's see if these DC movies do well. What are people going to be looking for? Other kinds of like we saw with Fallout and all that. When you have a good transmedia property, people look for those games, right? So
Right.
if James Gunn can bring back the DC movies to be something good, and we already know he did a great job with Peacemaker. I think that can kind of be the thing that all of that together could keep it around long enough. And if Wonder Woman can somehow come back from all this and be good, that'll keep it around long enough for Rocksteady to be all right, and Batman, to still exist. It just I don't know if another Batman movie will also come out before then too. I don't know what Matt Reeves is doing. Are they actually doing that Batman 2 movie or whatever's going on with that?
Right.
Obviously Joker 2 sucked.
Right. Bombed horribly.
I finally watched it when it was on HBO Max like last week, and I was like, we turned it off halfway through because I don't mind musicals, but it just, my God, it was just so not working for that movie. It's
Right.
like, come on. Even my my girlfriend's dad, who loved the first Joker, he just got up and he's like, why is there singing?
Yeah.
I don't want this in my movie. Like, they just ruined the movie for me.
Yep.
And I'm just like, I'm sorry. I'm only watching it because it's on HBO Max and I don't have to pay for it. I kind of wanted to see how bad it was, and I was like, yep, it's pretty bad. I watched that Will Ferrell Reese Witherspoon movie on Amazon Prime instead, and actually that's actually pretty good. But look, I hope that all of this stuff could be good because it's better for everyone if those movies and those IPs are doing well. It just, I hate it. I hope that Rocksteady can still be around long enough to like redeem themselves. Because for all intents and purposes, that whoever made that Arkham VR game, it's actually pretty good. So
Yeah.
people want that still if you can do it right.
Right.
All right. So now the rest of the stuff is really just like, let's hit this out quick. So Let me go. Sonic X Generations sold 2 million. Cool. Glad to see that that's doing well.
It helps when there's a movie out, you know?
Yeah, exactly. GBA's Wario Land 4 is coming to Switch Online. It should have also mentioned last week. Ridge Racer 64 is also coming. It's already out on Switch Online. This is coming on Valentine's Day. Cool. I'm always happy to see more games that I actually know hitting Switch Online, not the random NES stuff that Nintendo puts out that I'm just like, okay, you know, like whatever. Neither one of us really played this, but just wanted to mention it because it's been like a thing. Football Manager 25 has been delayed twice. It's supposed to come out in March. Apparently, it's not going to hit that, and they've just decided to cancel it. And they're going to focus on Football Manager 26. So if you're a big Football Manager guy, and there are a lot of people that are huge on Football Manager, I'm sure they're disappointed that they're not going to get to play the newest version. But
good on them for canceling it.
Exactly. Not for forcing it. Because they did mention, we could have put it out and just kept updating it. And we felt that it would have been terrible to do that. So we just canceled it.
Right.
And good on them. Happy to see people having the gumption to do that. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which was the big game release of last week, hit 1 million sales after the first day. So it's already made the money back that they spent on it, apparently, according to I forgot the main director.
Yeah.
But it's now
that was another game me and Jens were talking about as we compared it to Dragon Age Veilguard. Like, people want unique games or very specific games. And Veilguard tried the whole appealing to everyone approach, which didn't work. And almost never works, you know?
And Kingdom Come Deliverance has 2 has great reviews. It
ain't a game for you and I.
No,
but it is for the people that want it, and it's specifically made for them, and it's good at what it does. So EA trying to appeal to everyone, no.
There was a little bit of that reviewer controversy because the director brought up that I can't remember the outlet now. They gave it a 5, and they took it off the 90 Metacritic. And he was pissed about that. He decided to just go on social media and talk about it, and I was like, oh god,
that's not good, because
let's start that war again.
All right,
we really don't need that anymore. I'm just so tired of it. Let's not have game journalists get attacked, because a lot of people don't understand that video games take so long to play that unfortunately maybe a little bit more personal bias comes into those reviews than when you watch a 2-hour movie.
Well, even if the game is purely broken, that's one thing.
Right.
But, all reviews are subjective to a certain extent.
But there's people that they bring a lot more of their personal, I didn't jive with this game, so it is a 5.
Right.
They don't look at it objectively and go, it's a well-made game. It's still a 7. Okay, I did that with Big Helmet Heroes, right? I gave it a 7. Probably for a lot of people, you look at the jank that's in there and they probably go, oh, that should have been a 6 or a 5 or something. And I was like, I could still see the other qualities of this game for me kind of outweighs some of the jank that I had to deal with. For some people, it's like, I don't like this part of the game. I don't like that it forces me to do this. It's like, well, the game, that is what the game is. You didn't appreciate it for that. Perhaps you shouldn't have been the one reviewing it, and therefore now you gave this game a 5, and it does affect people. Unfortunately, Metacritic and OpenCritic scores are still tied to people's bonuses and stuff like that for a lot of places. Unfortunately, it's stupid. It shouldn't be that way, but it is. And just maybe think about, I'm not saying we need to think about those people when we're doing these reviews, but it's just don't don't take so much personal bias into it that it's like it almost feels like you're hating now instead of actually reviewing. The ESA, who they used to run E3, are now doing a networking event called Icon with 2 eyes. Everybody, the big players are all in on this. It's going to hit Las Vegas April 27th to April 30th. They're going to have visionary keynotes, engaging discussions, and workshops, and elite networking opportunities. Obviously, we talked about last week that the Summer Game Fest now has their own little business summit thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
You think this is gonna, obviously this is not supposed to be E3. It's not meant to be that. It's kind of going back to what E3 kind of used to be, like where it's supposed to be more like a trade show, more like this is a business thing.
Yeah.
You think this will actually, like, we got all the big players. You think this will be a big hit? Something will come out of it?
I think it'll probably be like pretty half-assed, or they might do it for like a year and then they won't get the money back, and that'll be it.
I think this is essentially just the business version of GDC. And it will be something that, like, in the industry we kind of you talk about it and whatever, but it's not this thing that you like make a big deal about outside of that.
Yeah.
And if some game gets made because some people got to meet up at this, we might find out the cool backstory behind it when No Clip does the documentary, but I think that's kind of be the extent of it for the most part. Steam is now going to offer a warning for early access games that don't get updated after a year. I feel like this should have been there from like day one with early access.
I mean, maybe, but I don't think
the game anymore.
I don't think they necessarily thought that companies or developers would like just abandon shit, or like. Well,
I think they also didn't know that early access was going to take off the way it did. Like, so many games just come on in early access, and then sometimes they're there for many years, not just one. And they end up being great successes, right? Like we've seen a lot of games do, or they do abandon it, right? Yeah.
I thought it was funny, the other Steam thing. Did you see that today?
No, not today. No.
It was Steam is putting the kibosh on games that have in-game advertising.
Yes, that's great.
And like, you have to like, they're telling developers, if you have this stuff, you have to remove it.
Yeah, that's good. They should have that.
Yep. If only they can come to mobile.
Also, I don't think I've seen this really reported that much. I saw some sites posting it, but I think it's kind of like a rumor right now. It's not but there's some hubbub about Steam is gonna maybe try Steam console version 2. What do you think about that? You think that could actually work?
No. I think the market, or not the marketplace, but the ecosystem for PC gaming is too varied and too like hyper competitive. And I think the reason the Steam Deck works to an extent is because they're targeting lower specs for both the game and the machine.
And you don't have that alternative to the Switch. Until Steam Deck came out, Steam Deck came out and gave you the alternative to the Switch. And then obviously now there's other portable PC gaming things out there.
It'll just be people if they buy like a Steam machine 2 or something, they'll start bitching about how it doesn't have a 590 in it or 1590 in it, or isn't this leading edge of technology, or
it's not going to erase the Xbox or the PS5 or even take out PCs for that matter. I think if it does come out and they're just going to have it be, the big picture mode version of the Steam Deck, where it's like literally we're just selling it on the Steam store, and we don't plan on having this in stores at all, then I guess fine, right? Because they're not making all these deals with all these other PC companies like they were with Alienware and all that, and then Alienware is expecting them to sell. If it's just Valve doing it because they want to give you the alternative, I also don't think that prohibits Xbox, or if Sony wants to do it, but I don't think they will. Because I still, if Sony eventually adopts the Microsoft strategy of let's be open, they're not going to do it for PlayStation 6. They might do it for something beyond that. They're still going to be Sony for PlayStation 6. So let's say Xbox, that's the to me, it's really the only push that they could possibly do that makes that console innovative is you can literally open up any other PC store on the Xbox and play those games. That doesn't prohibit that from happening because SteamOS is already available on Lenovo. So if Microsoft offers Valve enough money, I don't think Valve is going to say no.
Right.
It also doesn't stop the Steam Deck from existing or this console or whatever. I just don't think Valve is expecting these things to sell ridiculous numbers. They're just there for people that want them. And if they just don't sell at all, I guess they just don't make them anymore. But
Right.
We'll see.
Bring back the Valve, the Steam box thing. Steam, not the deck, but the stupid brick thing I had for like 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. With those terrible Steam controllers.
Yeah, the Steam Link.
Just really quickly, because we always have to talk about these things. Unfortunately, Iron Galaxy laid off 66 employees.
Yeah, it's a shame because I like Iron Galaxy. I mean, they don't make the best games always, but they got heart.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the problem is like the marketplace is so fractured. Like there's not a place for like the B tier types of games.
Right. Exactly.
Like Biomutant or Killer Instinct.
That exists with some places, but it's like very rare. Like you kind of have to. They have to accept. It has to be a known, like like the Atlas stuff, right? That's kind of double A-ish, but it's Persona. It's Shin Megami Tensei. Like those are beloved franchises. People will be
that's a very established brand. They're not
like a Dragon as well. Like that's especially the spinoffs. Like those are beloved as well. So it's like there's going to be acceptance for those. But you try to bring in a new IP double A, and it's like, unless it just really hits with people, it seems like they try to go way too far in the other direction. Like the I'm gonna kill myself, not kill myself, but I'm gonna hate myself for constantly saying this. You mentioned it last week. It's like the Bandai Namco game that they tried to make it transmedia before it even came out, and Operation 9 or whatever it is, and it just bombed, right? So also, speaking of Bandai Namco, because I want to bring this up, 117
Unknown 9 Ascending.
Unknown 9, yes. Okay, that's what it is. Sorry
such a memorable title also. I mean, that doesn't help either, but
I think we're thinking of like District 9 and all that other stuff too. Bandai Namco has laid off 117 employees. Not laid off in the same sense that we think of an American. It's, you remember when we were talking about they did that whole thing where they stuck people in a room and they said they weren't doing that, but they were. Apparently they have lost 117 employees because they were doing things like that. Interesting that they were doing that when Dragon Ball Sparking Zero sold 5 million copies, which is ridiculous for that franchise. Also, especially that version of the Dragon Ball games that you're not a big fan of, but hey, kudos to them. Again, helps when you have another property that is doing well in the Dragon Ball Daima and all that stuff, and knowing that this is one of the few last things that Toriyama himself has some kind of involvement in, because now we know that anything beyond Sparking Zero and Daima, that will be other people working on those. I think, which Yuji Horii did mention, the Dragon Quest 12 is progressing. That probably would have been the last thing that Toriyama might have had some involvement in.
Right. He looked at like
So
the initial art page and was like, "All right," and then
yeah,
passed away.
so sucks again. I mean, a legend of all that media, but all that has a thing together to kind of affect the sales
Right.
of that game doing well. Obviously, it was a good game as well.
I
Well,
hate to say it, but that'll be like when Miyamoto finally passes away,
I don't even want to think about that day. That's going to be a sad.
and it won't be the same as when not Nomura, but the guy who made Final Fantasy,
Oh,
because he's so
Sakaguchi.
yeah, he's been very divorced from that for a while now.
He came back now.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, for 20 years, he was kind of just, or for
I think
like
if he
10 years.
makes that one last game that he says he wants to make one last like big RPG
Right.
in the vein of Final Fantasy VI or whatever, if he does make it and it has Square Enix published on the box or on the cover, I
Yeah.
think that would change a lot of things. Where he kind of really did finally come full circle and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But all right, that's it for the show this week. Talking about games that are coming out in the next week or so. Also, coming out in this Valentine's week. Hopefully for all of y'all that have someone to celebrate with. If you watch the video version, you saw my girlfriend about 3 or 4 times. She's normally not here. It's just that she had my daughter. She went to pick up my daughter from school, and then she was like, "Well, I don't want to have to like bring her and then come back again." So, she just stayed here instead. We do have Sid Meier's Civilization 7, which will be the big
Meyer.
release. Sid Meier, sorry. Release of this week, coming out on everything. I know you're waiting on that code still. Hopefully you do get it so we can talk about it next week. But
Right.
Also there's that they did have the special edition you could buy to play early, which I saw some people that I know playing.
People aren't happy.
Yeah, definitely not, because it was the day that the PSN went down. So if you had it on PlayStation, you couldn't play it either.
Even on PC, people are pissed. So
we'll get into that, I guess, once it actually releases. Another legacy game. Those games are still coming out. Steel and Sorcery comes out on the 12th. Alien Rogue Incursion also releases on the 13th. Rugby 25, if you wanted to get your rugby fix.
finally,
You can get that on the 13th. Slime Heroes comes out on the 13th as well. A game I've been looking forward to, but I didn't try to go get the review code because I can't. It's just there's too many games coming out. After Love EP, which is the final game from the creator of oh my gosh, I can't think of the name. The Coffee
Talk
games, because remember he passed away. This is the last one, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. And this one also has like a Guitar Hero kind of tinge a little bit to it too. It has the rhythm games based gameplay when they have to do like songs and stuff like that. Also Legend of Heroes Trails to Daybreak True, which Scott Sis Scott over there, he's been on the show before, reviewed over there for Outer Haven. He liked it a lot. And Tomb Raider 4 through 6 remastered also comes out on Valentine's Day as well. So
a romantic.
few things. Yeah, exactly. You wanted to have that game to play with, the original, one of the original girl games, right? When girl gamers had to play things with only female leads or something, of that variety. Or the reason that a lot of guys played, because Lara Croft and all that stuff. You can go play those with your girlfriend, I guess, back then. Maybe After Love EP is the romantic one if you want that. But all right, that's it for this week's episode. Go like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. Thank you so much for watching, listening, whatever. We'll see you later, everybody.
Later.